The one constant that we can come to expect in our financial journey is the unexpected. You work so hard to stick to your budget so that you can save money, hit those goals, and do so much more financially. But what we don't plan for, because let's be real, it's not fun, it's not front of mind, are the unexpected events, or better said, an emergency. You don't want to think about what's going wrong. You don't want to think about losing a loved one. When you sit down to plan, it's for a perfect life that goes without kinks, without twists and turns that make you want to pull your hair out. But that's life. It's the unexpected. Having to deal with things we never thought we would be worrying about, whether it's your vehicle, your house, your health, losing a job, having a plan for the unexpected is paramount for that financial stability that you're looking for. So go grab that load of laundry and, something yummy to drink, and let's get into emergency funds and how to financially handle that unexpected event. Hey friend, welcome to the One Income Family Podcast. Do you live primarily on your husband's income and find it hard to save or get out of debt? Are you constantly searching for ways to cut costs, live frugally, and do things on a budget? Do you have big dreams only to be stopped by overspending and loosely following your budget? Hey, I'm Molly, and I too have struggled with living and growing a family on one income. But through trial and error and a lot of help from God, my family and I have learned how to live abundantly on less. This podcast will bring you a Christ-centered, simple, and frugal lifestyle, along with how to budget so you can follow it, and time management tips that will transform your budget and your home. So go restart that laundry, grab your Bible, and let's get budgeting. Picture this. You're getting ready to go to the grocery store, and in place of the dread, you feel relaxed. You didn't have to worry about whether there would be enough money this paycheck to pay for the groceries. You didn't even put a thought towards the budget because you know your grocery list will fit inside of your grocery budget. Taking your children inside the store is no longer a chore because there's enough money to get a small treat. That is, if you want to. This all happened because you sat down and created a money management system that maximizes your money so that you know where every dollar is going. A system that saves you both time and money. You can set financial goals like getting rid of debt or saving for that family vacation or emergency fund and achieve them. You are no longer a slave to your money. So how can you embrace this transformation? By booking a financial strategy session. So head on over to calendly.com/Molly Bunnell and book your financial strategy session today so that you can head into the new year with less stress and more joy in your heart. That's calendly.com/Molly with a Y, B as in boy, ENELL. Alrighty, so this episode came to me because let's just be real. This last month has been nothing but craziness in my life. I wasn't even sure that I was going to get the last episode recorded on the Christmas budgeting series because my entire family came down with hand, foot, and mouth disease. And I had lost my voice and I had no energy. I'm like, this is not good. Then following that, we found out that a family member of mine, well, not mine, of my husband's, was really sick, and she was like at the last couple hours of her life. And so we went to see her before she passed on. And, that was unexpected, and we were all still getting over being sick. And then we come home, and then we get a stomach bug, right after being sick. And then have to go to a funeral for that loved one the next week. And oh my gosh, was it crazy? Was it hectic? Was it all over the place? It was a struggle emotionally, financially, everything was just crazy and there was no rhyme or reason about it. And I was just lost. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to do. It was such a shock. It was just, it wasn't fun. And this was like the entire month of November. It was just one thing after the next. And, that's why this episode came about, because I kind of had a mental breakdown because I didn't know where I was going to pull this money from. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I know where the money should have came from, but I was still like overwhelmed and unsure of what to do because this family member it was a 6-hour drive to get there. So we had to drive there, we had to use gas, we had to eat out, which with being sick, eating out is not an easy task, right? And then we had to have the hotel room for a couple nights, and it was just like overwhelming, and I was just totally lost and overwhelmed. I hit a point where I was like, I don't even know why I plan anymore because nothing ever goes as planned. Everything's just crazy and I can never achieve my goals. I kind of hit that pity party syndrome, which I'm 100% positive that you can follow, right? But it was so much. And in the moment, you don't think about it. And that's why I really wanted to talk about, emergency funds today, because those situations happened, and knowing where the money's coming from in those situations and knowing that you even have that money for these situations is just, it's peaceful. It's knowing that you're prepared for the unexpected. And, sometimes there are even things that we don't prepare for with these emergency funds, but having these funds available, it definitely helps and it eases the stress. And I know it's not something that we want to think about. We don't want to think about, being sick. We don't want to think about losing loved ones. We don't want to think about things going wrong in our life and having to deal with the unexpected. We just want to think about the easy, perfect life that we sit down and we plan, and each month goes the way it should be, and we shouldn't have to worry about whether money should be going in another situation or not. And that's the easy life, right? But it's not life. Life is the unexpected, and that's what we should be prepared for, and that's what true financial stability is. It's not having so much money that we can go on these trips. It's not having so much money that we can spend a whole bunch of money on things that we don't necessarily need, which it's all nice and it's fun to have, but that doesn't actually bring us financial peace. That just brings us fun and joy, which are all necessary to have in life, but you don't necessarily need as much as we crave. Like, you can have joy in your life and you can have fun without a whole lot of money. So needing to financially support these fun things that we want to do isn't a necessity, but it's a fun thing. However, needing the money for unexpected events like losing a loved one and being able to travel there, like getting sick and needing to take care of something, like if it's a long-term illness or something, like you lose your job, being able to pay for expenses for a certain amount of time before you're able to go back. Those are what gives us true financial peace, is being able to handle those situations. It might mean that you have to cut down on things because maybe you didn't save up quite enough for the length of time that you need, but you still are able to handle the pressure, and it's not as deafening because you have that money there. You're able to do those things that you still need to do. You're able to buy food. You're able to pay your bills and all the things that you need in order to live. Like, your necessities are taken care of. Or like I said, that trip to go to a funeral or to go see a loved one before they pass is taken care of, and you don't have to worry about where that money's coming from. So that is why I really wanted to talk about this episode today, because, my life has just been crazy. And so I want to share with you the things that I have been reminded of along this journey as to my financial plan and everything that has made me feel, even though I got overwhelmed and went down a path that, I probably shouldn't have, but I still was able to do the things that we needed to do and just deal with the financial thought of it later on because I knew I had the money. I knew we could handle it. It just was a matter of moving some things around and remembering where this money was coming from. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about, well, I guess I have 3 different accounts that I want to talk about. And the first one is, and if you follow Dave Ramsey, you know what I'm going to talk about, at least for 2 of them. But the first one is having, he says $1,000 in a savings account for unexpected events and emergencies, but I say it should be more like $2,000 because, prices are going up on things. And I just feel so much more comfortable having that $1,000 cushion. I usually only use about $1,000, but in case something happens, like more expensive than $1,000 can handle, I know I have that extra 1,000 in there. And so I suggest having a $2,000 fund. Start with $1,000 and then work your way up to $2,000, because when you have an emergency and you see that account go down to 0, it can definitely wreak havoc on your mindset. So eventually, I say get to that $2,000 because it just feels so much better when you do have an emergency that you have to use that for. The second account that I want to talk about is having a 3 to 6 months worth saved up of expenses. And those are things like for your grocery bills, it's for your budgets, it's the bare necessities. It's not the fun things like going out to eat. It's not the fun things like vacation or saving stuff up for that vacation, or I feel like I already said that, but it's not the savings part of it. It's essentially just the bare necessities of what you need so that you can make it through that time, which that time is going to be hard as it is if you lose your job, if you need that money, because that's what this money is for. It's for the time that you possibly lose your job. Whether it's because you were fired, whether it's because you were laid off, that's essentially the same thing. Whether it's because you quit your job, I don't suggest quitting your job though. That's actually, if you want to quit jobs, you definitely need to have another job lined up. But if there's a situation where you're like pushed out of your job because you got sick or you were laid off because they weren't able to keep as many people on board as they thought, or whatever the situation might be, that's what this is for. COVID happens again, right? You have the money in the savings account to be able to live for that long, and then you can either try to find another job or find another way of, covering those expenses. But it gives you time to get that done because it can be stressful and it can be overwhelming. So then the next thing that I want to talk about, which isn't necessarily an emergency fund, but I want to remind you that some things that you think are emergencies aren't actual emergencies. So you should have sinking funds in place for things like your, why can't I think of what it's called? Your kitchen appliances. There we go. Because you never know when one of those might go out. So if you have a sinking fund because you expect it to go out eventually, maybe if you're renting, you don't have to worry about that. But if you own your own home, then you should be planning for the next appliance to go out. Because I feel like my dishwashers, every time I move, I always have to buy a new dishwasher. We also just bought a new refrigerator because the one that was here was like 30, 40 years old and it was starting to really die. And I mean, it's still going strong because we gave it to somebody, a friend who needed a refrigerator, but it was making funky noises and we just felt it was time to get a new one. But again, that's not an emergency. The dishwasher going out, I could I did wash the dishes by hand. I don't necessarily need a dishwasher. The refrigerator, it wasn't dead yet. It hadn't completely died on us yet, so we could still be using that one. And so those aren't necessarily unexpected events or emergencies that I should be using my emergency fund for. I should be saving up for those, knowing that it's going to happen. I know one thing that was a big struggle was at the beginning of buying my home place from my father, the heater went out, and that was like a $10,000 buy, right? And so that one was a struggle because we didn't plan for that, but we should have known it was coming, or I should have anyways, because I grew up here my entire life and I knew that it was like older than I was. And so you should have known that it was coming, or other things like your hot water heater. Those only last for so long. So you should know that you need to be saving up for those things. And that's what your sinking fund's for. That money should not be coming from the emergency fund unless all of a sudden, like my furnace, it just went out at the beginning and you didn't have anything saved up for it. But if you use up that money in your savings, in your emergency account, then you need to make sure that that is the next thing. That is your priority of saving up for. So everything that you were saving up for after, you do your expenses that you normally need, that your basic expenses, what normally would be going into savings accounts for, say, a vacation, for, say, a vehicle, you don't do that. Everything then goes back into your emergency fund so that you can stash your money back up to save for that again, so that you know that it's there and fully funded and able to handle the next emergency. When I got to thinking about it, I know that the money that I used was for this situation, my needing to travel expenses. I essentially used money for goals. So we had other travel plans for January and for April because we have weddings to go to and we want to go see some friends, and we had money saved up for that. But we didn't want to use that for this unexpected event, right? But that's what I ended up using because I didn't think about my emergency fund, and that's where that should have came from, and then replenished it like I did when the money came back in to be able to have a fully funded traveling account. So, I had the money, it was saved in somewhere else, but I should have brought it. I should have thought about where it should have came from. That situation, it should have came from the emergency fund. And then I wouldn't have been so stressed about it, right? And that's where the whole part where I was like, well, I shouldn't even be planning for these things because the pity party that I went down, it was just a road that I'm not too happy I went down. And it could have been avoided if I would have remembered that that's what the point of my emergency fund was. But in that situation, when you're going through emotional shock and not sure how to handle things, you don't really think clearly. So if you have enough money in another place, it's okay to use that. So don't stress over that. You can always replenish it just like you would your emergency fund. It's okay. But definitely make sure that your sinking funds are there, because other things that you might want to use your emergency fund for are new tires. Well, you should know that when you use your tires, you're going to need new tires. So you should be putting money away for new tires in the future so that you don't have to use your emergency fund and stress over it. Now, if you blow a tire and you need to get one right then and there, then yes, that's what your emergency fund's for. And there are so many other situations. I'm not going to name them all because each and every situation is unique, but you do need to really know and understand what an emergency truly is and decide whether it's something that you should be creating a sinking fund for so that you can save up for it slowly and not have to throw it all into the account at once, or whether it's your true emergency where it needs to come from the emergency account. So I hope that this episode has really helped you think about this. And I know it's not fun. I know it's not easy, and it's something that we don't really want to do. But when you think about it, it's something that needs to be done, and it's something that's going to bring you that financial peace and feel like you are stable in your finances because you are able to cover those unexpected events and the emergencies that come in life. Because again, life is the unexpected events that we have to figure out how to roll with. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. And there are things that we can do, like creating emergency funds and sinking accounts that make it easier. And so that's what I suggest you doing. Get these accounts in place, get saving for them so that you are stable, so that you are at peace and not stressing over the ups and downs of life. Alrighty, so before I hop off, I want to remind you to head over and grab a financial strategy session with me so that you can start creating those habits and setting in place small changes that will get you closer to sticking to your budget and finding yourself able to focus on your family more than your finances. And together, we can create your emergency funds. We can figure out what is a true emergency for you. We can figure out what sinking funds you need to put in place to cover what you might have in the past thought was an emergency, but isn't something that's actually an emergency. It's something that you should expect to be happening in life. And so definitely come on over, book a financial strategy session so that you are living in financial peace instead of financial stress. So you can grab that financial strategy session at calendly.com/Molly Bunnell. That's calendly.com/Molly with a Y, B as in boy, ENELL. And let's see if this is what you have been looking for. Hey friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I pray that it inspired you into action. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with that friend who also lives on one income and wants to learn how to live abundantly on less? Also, please leave a quick review for the show. It lights me up to know this podcast is helping you, and it helps get the show out there to other mamas in need. All right, well, it's time to go play with the babies, so I will meet you back here on Tuesday for another episode. Peace and chicken grease, mama.